Here we go again. Police now investigating yet another tragedy at a school campus. This time, yesterday, late in the day, Purdue University, a teaching assistant was in class and was shot and killed by a fellow student. The suspect is now in custody in this case, but yesterday's shooting is just part of what seems to be a growing trend in the United States. We cover stories like this nearly every week in some form or shape. 5 school shootings in the last week alone. One of them was at a middle school, 2 were at high schools, and 2 on college campuses. At least 25 school shootings took place in 2013. And of course, back in 2012, Newtown was the one that stands out the most clearly in everyone's minds. The deadliest last year in 2013 was when 7 were killed at Santa Monica College. Meanwhile, only 10,000 schools have armed guards out of about 140,000 schools in this country. Most of those that have armed guards are middle schools and high schools. So let's talk about what's going on here. Julie Roginski is a former political advisor to New York Senator Frank Lautenberg. Lars Larson is a syndicated radio talk show host, and I welcome both of you here. You know, obviously, after Newtown, there was so much discussion in this country about what should be done, that there were basically, a number of things that seemed to crop up in so many of these cases. The access to a gun just being one of them. The other was the issue of mental health. An obsession with video games seems to be what I would call a toxic cocktail that is apparent in so many of these stories. And the outrage comes, the horror comes at scenes like the one we're watching here, and it seems that very little has been done to prevent them from happening because they just keep on happening. This young woman's sister was a heroic teacher who was lost that day, and you see these children coming out. So, Julie, it raises the question, what do we need to do here?
There's a whole host of things we need to do. First and foremost, we need to do things that should be easily accomplished because they shouldn't be controversial, though they are. We need to do federal background checks and better background checks all across the board, not just in places, not just in gun stores, but also in places like gun shows and private sales. Those are things that would prevent people who are mentally ill from getting access to guns. That should not be a controversial issue, though unfortunately Congress can't get its act together to get it done, despite the fact that universal background checks are supported by, I think, something like 90% of the American public. I advocate for more stringent gun control. There is no reason on earth why semi-automatic assault weapons should be something that are easily sold in this country, and so on and so forth. But again, this has become a rhetorical issue and nobody's acting on it, and I think it's a disgrace.
I think you make a great point that Congress has, done nothing. I mean, these issues get so much outrage, and you hear the politicians rail about what needs to be done, and I want to emphasize that we're talking about all 3 areas here: movies, video games, mental health issues, and the gun issue. And some people believe, Lars, that what we need is not fewer guns in this country. And as I pointed out, there's only 10,000 armed guards and 140,000 education centers in this country. And a lot of people think if we had more of them covered better, we would have a lower rate of these stories, Lars.
I won't oppose the idea of more armed guards, but here's the other common characteristic of all of these shootings. They happen in gun-free zones. And people from the far left, like Julie, will tell you that if we have fewer guns, we'll have fewer of these incidents. The fact is, almost all of these incidents happen in gun-free zones, virtually all of them. And what she's ignoring is that we already do have gun control. 20,000 laws across America, both local and federal, and virtually every gun sold in America goes through a federal background check, especially those at gun shows if they're sold by dealers. The folks who'd like to say, but we have to cover the private party sales, have them point to one single incident involving a private party sale. They can't do it. Most of these guns are either legally purchased by people who are legally capable of doing that, and you know of some of the recent shootings where that's happened, or they're stolen, as in the case of A.R.M Lanza at Sandy Hook. So the idea of having more laws that are not enforced doesn't make any sense. But when a young man like Andrew Bolt, and my heart and prayers goes out to his family for the loss, when he is murdered, he's murdered almost always in a gun-free zone. Having more guns in society it does make society safer. And the Department of Justice says that almost 2 million times a year, American citizens with no special training use a gun to protect themselves from a criminal.
I find, Julie, that so many people, are horrified at the idea of more armed guards at schools, right? But if you ask them about their own child's school, and they imagine for a moment that there is a gunman, God forbid, in that school, I think most of them would say that they would be happy if there was a policeman there who could take that person out, before they did any damage to any more families.
I have a young child in a school, and I will tell you right now that if there were armed guards in his school and there were any guns anywhere near my child in his school, and he's a toddler and he can't really know what's right or what's wrong about guns, but if I had an armed guard at his school, I would pull him out of that school. So I'm, for one of those people.
So if somebody was about to enter the hallway with a gun,
listen,
you would not want anyone to be able to defend your son?
I do not want guns in my son's school. I don't want people with access to weapons. I don't know what these guards are. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't want weapons in my school. Now, is that a risk that I'm taking? Yes, but I think the risks outweigh the benefits. Look, there's a reason my child will probably not commit suicide with a gun is because there are no guns in my house. And you're speaking about gun-free zones. How about all those people that commit suicide because they have easy access to weapons, all those kids that are able to take their parents' guns and kill themselves? Most kids that don't have guns in the home won't be able to have the ability to do that.
It's a separate issue.
It's not a separate issue. You're talking about gun-free zones. You're talking about gun-free zones.
And armed guards in the schools.
Same
we
thing.
got to leave it there, you guys. It's obviously a very emotional issue, but I think it's one we need to talk about because we do these stories every single week, it seems. Lars, Julie, thank you very much, you guys.